Good morning all. I welcome you all on the behalf of StudyIQ IAS English. My name is Pritesh Mathurkar. I welcome you all for the current affairs discussion of the 11th of May 2023. I extend my warmest regards to everyone, those who are joining me live, those who will be watching me in a later date, in a later time as per your convenience. So I welcome you all to this very special endeavor where I take the analysis of the Hindu newspaper per se. As I am being adamant since day one, guys, the civil services examination is a ever evolving examination. Each year, the questions will become more analytical, and dare I say, you will have to face critical analysis a lot. Why? Because you being the future civil servants of India, you being the future policy implementers of India, and some of you will also go into the policy drafting parts. So you will have to assure that whatever you are doing, whatever you are implementing is in the best interest of public. Hence, that critical analysis is very paramount for you all to understanding your work in the future. Hence, the name of the session, the Hindu Analysis Zone. Good morning, Jasmita. Good morning, Stuti. Morning, Anup. I hope all of you are doing fine. So, in these sessions, I try to paint a picture wherein we analyze the articles from utilitarian perspective so that you can utilize the information of these sessions directly in your answers and directly in your prelims too. So, please make sure that you get these sessions from utilitarian perspective. Using these sessions, I will be covering roughly 30 to 40 marks in prelims, and roughly I will be covering 100 to 200 marks in mains, and dare I say it may go up to 400 to 500 marks if essay and GS paper 3 comes in your perspective, comes in your purview. And if guys you understand this session well, you understand this session from answer writing perspective, from vocabulary perspective, which I started in this week only. Up till now we were primarily focusing on analysis, but from 2 days back we have started what we are starting doing answer analysis, the structuring of answers, and also most importantly vocabulary too. So we all need to understand that the analysis of Hindu is also important from this angle. And my hypothesis or my theory will again come true today, wherein you will have repeat articles of the issues which we have already discussed. So again, my theory or theory of Pritesh Mathurkar, you can call it as theory of PM, not the Prime Minister, but theory of Pritesh Mathurkar is coming true even today. So let's begin with the sessions. So in the free flow of these sessions, we have the detailed discussion of the PDFs of the relevant days current affairs of the Hindu. All of these PDFs are readily available to you the moment we end the session. Morning, Aditi, and you can get all those PDFs on a Telegram channel entitled HAZ, the Hindu Analysis Zone. For joining this channel, you can just do a global search on Telegram at the Hindu Analysis Zone, wherein I post the relevant PDFs there and there itself. And again, I am saying that you need to make this special by your own virtue. So you will have to work upon the content, guys. Before coming to these sessions, you should have a working understanding which articles are important today, which are not important. Once you get that consonance with me, you will be in a pretty damn good territory for analyzing the current affairs. So let's begin our session today. Okay. So in each session, I give you the severity score of the articles. I give you the difficulty level of articles with regards to the prelims perspective and the mains perspective. So today's severity score for 3 articles is less than 4. They are primarily headline articles, but for 2 articles the severity score is again 10. Okay, so you have to make clear that both of these articles are extremely well read, they are extremely analyzed, extremely thought out, and they are contemplated in your brain. Okay. Good morning, Niranjan. So Stuti, Niranjan, Jasmita, Anup, Aditi, and those of you will watch me later. So again, I'm saying this for the first time. I'm opening up another wand in my Pandora's box. In civil services preparation, the most important thing is contemplation. Contemplation in the sense of what? That whatever you read, whatever you revised, whatever you have made notes of, that you have to contemplate in your brain. Because unless and until you contemplate it as an afterthought, it will be very difficult for you all to express it in mains. So what you have to do, guys, whatever you have read, after you have read it, when you are taking break of half hour, let's say 20 minutes, so you are just sitting for 5 minutes and you are just thinking, oh, what I have read, what are the issues that I have read, and before sleeping also, just 5 to 10 minutes contemplation in your brain. Why, guys? Because civil services examination is an examination which will appreciate diversity of thoughts, and diversity of thoughts can only come from contemplation. If you don't analyze, if you don't do a afterthought analysis of whatever you have read, you scoring good in civil services examination, dare I say, you becoming a able civil servant is not that justified. Okay, so please do a contemplation, and today's two articles are with regards to that only, because one of the article is written by a very big personality, a very eminent officer, a very eminent person who has been posted in Afghanistan, who has been posted in Bangladesh, and that person's name is Rakesh Sood. The photo which I will showcase you today. So very distinguished fellow, and he writes very beautiful articles on space research. So today's first article is with regards to the space sector of India, and mind you that this article will have n number of dimensions. This article will have n number of new technologies. So today, for the first time, guys, I'm saying this, that it will be little bit difficult from your end to understand all the tidbits. It will be difficult for you all to grasp the entire article. Now, what needs to be done here? You will say, sir, you are only saying that it's difficult. You are our current affairs faculty and you are saying it's difficult. So how we are going to perceive this? So guys, the simple answer is revision. Once I have showcased you the article on the board, it's your duty that you are getting the PDF and you are reading the article once and twice, so that your mind gets the diversity based dimension. See, civil services examination is not an examination where they will solely focus on conceptual clarity, they will solely focus on the static part, but they will focus on the amalgamation of both. So you need to have your static territory clear, your current territory clear, and the analysis of both of that clear. And guys, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So the first article that I will be taking today, please treat this as a marathon journey, not as a sprint journey. Okay, see, you and me are both evolving together. I'm considering myself to be on your pedestal level. Okay, I'm not thinking myself as I'm a faculty of current affairs for more than 8 years, but today you and me are moving on the same pedestal level. So just bear with me, guys, understand the diversity of this article, and we will move slowly ahead. Okay, so let's begin the first article written by Rakesh Sood. Okay, Rakesh Sood. Who is Rakesh Sood? So Rakesh Sood is basically a former diplomat who has worked and negotiated on interface of technology, security and strategy. And Rakesh Sood sir was also posted in Afghanistan. So very eminent person. The beauty of this article, the language of this article is just exemplary. You will not find such articles coming so much regularly in Hindu, and that is why I prefer this newspaper. Many of them argue that, sir, you should take Indian Express. Many of them argue that we should take other newspapers, but the quality of articles, the articles which directly translate in your mains, in your prelims, are from this paper. And why? Because you have such eminent persons writing this article. Okay, so let's begin the today's discussion. So this article is with regards to the new space policy which came in the last month. What are the key areas of that policy? What are the improvisations? Where India's space sector is lagging today? And what is the future scope of India's space sector? So we will be going into the depths of that, but only from the article's perspective, nothing from the outsider's perspective. So whatever is there in the article, we'll primarily focusing on that only. Okay. So if I try to paint a picture as to where you and me are standing today, so we have come a long way. We have come a long way from the traditional analog communication where you had the telephone lines connecting between two homes and you are having the landline. From there, now we have come to 5G. Okay, so now your smartwatch can interact with your phone can interact with your CCTV cameras, your CCTV cameras can interact with your local server, and they can provide you real-time information. So from landline to 5G, now even we are moving towards 6th generation of communication. So we have come a long way, guys. We have broadband, we have OTT services. So basically you have generation change in the communication field, you have generation change in the space sector field, where now you have satellite communications, and we are even moving ahead of satellite communications now. We are trying to build up a network of satellites in space like the Starlink. Okay, so the premise of this article is that first we will try to paint as to where we are standing today, what are the lacunas as of today, what are the 5 key areas of the space policy, and as to how we should move ahead. Okay, so let's begin. On April 20 this year, the Indian Space Research Organization ISRO released the Indian Space Policy 2023 that had been in the works for some years. However, it needs to be followed up with suitable legislation accompanied by clear rules and regulations. So it's basically that ISRO has given you a document of future. Okay, so it's just a white paper. So the policy has come out, but the policy right now is lacking regulation. It's not being enforced. So it will require some regulation in the future. Okay. So basically we are now advocating for the growth of space sector, how space sector grew, okay, and why there is a need for space policy in India. So if you have a simple question in mains that why there is a need for space policy in India, what are the key areas of space policy of 2023, and what is the future scope of space research in India, so one complete answer can be framed from this article. So now let's understand the growth of space sector. Until the early 1990s, India's space industry and space economy were defined by ISRO. So ISRO was the primary contractor for space industry and space economy. Space sector involvement was limited to building the ISRO designs and specifications. The second space is began with the licensing of private TV channels. So now if you are watching the Kapil Sharma show, now if you are watching Kaun Banega Crorepati on your TV, you must be knowing that these TV channels are owned privately. Even the satellite through which they are relayed, they are all owned privately. Okay. The explosive growth of the internet, mobile telephony, and the emergence of smartphone today, while ISRO's budget is approximately $1.6 billion, India's space economy is over $9.6 billion. See, ISRO is what? Indian Space Research Organization. The name itself suggests that it is primarily a space research organization. But because today you have glorification of OTT services, you have glorification of private TV channels. So what is happening, guys, basically that we are outsourcing all of this to foreign satellites. Every satellite will have a transponder from where the information is relayed to your home. So someone is broadcasting to the satellite, from satellite the information is being broadcasted to your home. So this is owned privately, and India is primarily outsourcing all of this to foreign companies. Okay. It is estimated that with an enabling environment, the Indian space industry could grow up to 60 billion by 2030, directly creating more than 2 lakh jobs. So in the future, with the advent of technologies like 6G, with the even improvement of broadband technologies, we can have a space market which is more than $60 billion. Yet the enabling policy environment has proved elusive. Why? Today, more than half of the transponders beaming TV signals into the Indian homes are hosted on foreign satellites. So even though ISRO's budget is barely $1.6 billion, but India's space economy is whooping $10 billion. So out of $10 billion, not more than 1/4 is borne by ISRO. Majority of the money is going to where? Majority of the money is going to the hosting of foreign satellites. Today, more than half of the transformers bringing TV signals into the Indian homes are hosted on foreign satellites, resulting in an annual outflow of $500 million. So if you are watching Kaun Banega Crorepati in your home, if you are watching the Kapil Sharma show, if you are watching the most preferred show on Indian television, Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma, so if you are watching such shows, so the information which is related to your home is basically borne by the private satellites, by the private transponders. So this is a key gray area that this shouldn't happen. We should not outsource this to foreign satellites. We should have enabling environment in India only. Okay. Now, all of you know that you have location-based services in your phone. You primarily use what? You use GPS, Global Positioning System. Global Positioning System is owned by whom? It is owned by USA. You have services like GLONASS, you have services like Galileo. All of these positioning services or geospatial location services, they are borne by which entities? Foreign companies. Recently, India has launched its own satellite service called as Navik, the navigation system using Indian constellation, but yet it has not been launched on a commercial scale. So basically, we are also outsourcing our navigation data, our security data to be hosted by foreign satellites. National geospatial policy that has been further liberalized in 2022, yet Indian users, including the security and defense agencies. So you as users, you will use what? You will use the geospatial data for determining your location. So you are sending someone your live location on WhatsApp. You are sending someone directions to your home. So that is all being directed to whom? To foreign companies, including the security and defense agencies. Even the defense agencies are reliant on satellite data which is hosted by foreign companies. Spend nearly $500 million annually to procure Earth observation data and imagery from foreign sources. So guys, hence there is a need for space policy. Why? Because today, even though the space sector of India is accounting for whooping $9.6 billion, majority of it is being outsourced. Why? Because right now we don't have such enabling environment in India. So a simple answer to a question that why there is a need for space policy is with regards to this. Why? Because even the geospatial services in India are being outsourced to foreign companies, and this is not done. Okay. What is different now? How this policy is a enabling policy? What are the 5 key points of this policy? Now we will discuss this. Now please focus on me very properly. Why? Because this is a very short but detailed policy. It's just 11-page document, but in that 11 page everything has been spelled out, from investing in research to investing in private entities to future scope of India. And for this guys, there are some acronyms. So the first acronym is called as GE. GE will stand for government entity. The second acronym which is used in this policy is NGE. It is called as non-governmental entity, basically the private players. So please remember, henceforth when I am saying GE, GE is basically government entity. When I am saying NGE, NGE will translate into non-government entity. Okay. Now, what is the vision of space policy? It's very important to understand the vision, and this is what you should remember and quote to. Okay. The vision of the space policy is to enable, encourage and develop a flourishing commercial presence in space. Is to enable, you need to have enabling environment, you need to encourage it, and you need to develop a flourishing commercial presence in space that suggests and acceptance that the private player is a critical stakeholder in the entire value chain of space economy. Now, you must have heard the word called as SpaceX, which is owned privately by Elon Musk. So NASA was out of technology. NASA was out of budget for sending man to moon, sending man to Mars. So NASA tapped into the private sector of America. And see now, SpaceX is sending astronauts of NASA to the International Space Station. So similarly, we need to do something like this, where we now need to use the private entities, the non-governmental entities, to open up the space sector of India. Okay, it makes 5 key points. It defines India's socio-economic development and security, protection of environment and lives, pursuing peaceful exploration of outer space, stimulation of public awareness and scientific quest. So see, it makes 5 key points. It defines its role. So what is India's role now? So India's role is basically in space sector will be socio-economic development and security. So using geospatial data, you will see that how the weather of a particular area is affecting the agriculture. Where you have a cyclone coming, we can do soil nutrient analysis from space. Protection of the environment and lives, pursuing peaceful exploration of outer space. There is an increasing threat that the outer space may get militarized, so we have to pursue it peacefully. Stimulation of public awareness and scientific quest. So you need to have a scientific vigor, you need to instill a scientific vigor in the people also. Why? Because we owe our origin to the universe. Okay, every life form on earth is basically born. Why? Because somewhere down the line, somewhere in the universe, some star exploded. You had cosmic dust falling on Earth, from where you have heavier elements like iron, magnesium, zinc, copper, all of which are very vital for our survival. So the hemoglobin which is flowing in your hands, in your legs, in your body right here, right now, has come from some another cosmic entity. It is very difficult to forge a heavy element like iron on Earth. So we need to instill such scientific quest, such scientific vigor in you all, wherein you understand that basically you owe your origin, you owe your source of birth to the cosmos. So the cosmos is the bigger entity, and hence we need to venture out. Okay. So now I'm discussing the 5 key points in the space policy, and these 5 points are extremely important. So please get these 5 points very, very properly. I hope those who are watching me, you are free to comment, guys, if anything you want in repetition. Otherwise, I am moving forward. Okay. First, this is the only reference to security in the document, making it clear that the focus is on civilian and peaceful applications. So basically, the only reference to security in this document is India's socio-economic development and security. So apart from this, there is no mention of the word security in this document in the 11 pages, indicating what? That majority of this will be for civilian uses and peaceful application, and that is what is needed, guys. Already we have completely destroyed the earth by wars. We don't want to destroy the space by wars. So majority of the India space sector from now will be dedicated to civilian and peaceful applications. Considering that space-based intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance and communication, positioning and navigation capabilities are increasingly seen as mission critical by defense services, that India conducted a successful anti-sat direct ascent test in March, and in the same year set up Defense Space Agency and Defense Space Research Organization. It is reasonable to infer that a defense-oriented space security policy document will be a separate document. So India has basically now created a separate entity for doing the exploration of space with regards to security, with regards to defense. And what is the name of that organization? Defense Space Research Organization. And we have already carried out a test like anti-satellite direct ascent test, wherein if a country uses a satellite as a weapon to destroy any infrastructure, so we can launch anti-satellite missile. So now it is clear that the space policy of India will be different from the defense space policy of India. Why? Because you will now have two different entities for doing so. For civilian applications, primarily ISRO will be concerned, but for defense and security applications, you will have Defense Space Research Organization, which will have a more defense oriented space security policy document as a separate document. So the first key point you need to remember in space policy is now the security of India will be different from the application, from the civilian, from the peaceful applications part of the space utilization. So now space sector will be grouped into two. The security and defense will be handled by a different entity, whereas the civilian and peaceful applications will be handled primarily by ISRO. Second, the policy has laying a strategy and then spells out the roles of Department of Space, ISRO, the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, in 2020, the New Space India Limited, a public sector unit set up in 2019 under Department of Science as the commercial arm of ISRO to replace now the defunct Antrix. I know, guys, this is somewhat difficult. I know that this is somewhat difficult to grasp on your end, but please bear with me. I'm again reiterating what do you mean by this. So up till now, there was a lacuna of what? That which agency will handle which operation. But now, for the first time, this policy is clearly spelling out that which part of ISRO or which organ of ISRO will handle what. See, you need to have a commercial arm. Commercial arm will do what? Commercial arm will move for securing contracts. It will move from securing new orders from different markets of the world. So if I'm a person who is living in North America and if I want to launch my own satellites, so the commercial arm for ISRO will approach me. I will approach the commercial arm for ISRO. It's basically an outsourcing company. So you need to have certain agencies of ISRO, certain agencies in space sector which will handle different functions. So these are the names of the agencies. Second, the policy lays out a strategy and then spells out the roles of what Department of Space, because ISRO functions under Department of Space, the PM being the chairperson of Department of Space, the ISRO, the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center in Space, set up in 2020, and the New Space India Limited NICL, a public sector set up in 2019 under Department of Space as the commercial arm of ISRO to now replace the defunct Antrix. So now, which is the commercial arm of ISRO? It is the New Space India Limited NSIL, a public sector unit set up in 2019 under the Department of Space as the commercial arm of ISRO. So what is the commercial arm of ISRO now? NSIL, New Space India Limited. Okay. You will have a different function of Department of Space. ISRO will be separate. The National Space Promotion and Authorization Center will now be separate. So National Space Promotion and Authorization. So this department will now, or this agency will now look after the regulation of space sector. Okay. So this is the second key point of the space policy of 2023, wherein you have different mandates of agencies being spelled out clearly. So now there is no confusion as to which agency or which organ of ISRO will do what. Third, it states that the ISRO will transition out of the existing practice of being present in the manufacturing of operation and space systems. This is very, very important, guys. Please listen to me very, very carefully. The third key point of space policy is very much important. Why? If I take the full form of ISRO, ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, it itself says in the name that ISRO should be primarily concerned with the space research. It should be primarily concerned with research and development. But up till now, ISRO was also handling the manufacturing of operational space systems. So this is now not done. Now ISRO will do what? ISRO will only do research and development in the advancements of space sector, whereas manufacturing, outsourcing will all be borne by the non-governmental entities. So third, it states that the ISRO will transition out of existing practice of being present in the manufacturing of operational space system. ISRO shall focus on R&D in advancement technology. ISRO will now use its biggest asset, its qualified and talented manpower, to concentrate on cutting-edge research and development and long-term projects such as Chandrayaan and Gaganyaan. So ISRO will now tap into the talent pool and it will only focus on research and development. Rest everything, manufacturing, getting contracts, it will all be borne by other entities. Okay. So this is very, very important. Fourth point, the non-governmental entities in India. So if you having a private company which is tapping into the space sector, now that private company will be given full autonomy. There will be no kind of red tapeism, there will be no kind of overlying burden on that entity that you should comply with this, you should do that, you should not do this. They will be given full autonomy to explore the space sector. So this is the fourth key point of space policy, and dare I say the second most important point, because for you all to function properly, for me to function properly, we both need certain autonomy. Okay, basically right to privacy in space sector. Okay, jokes aside. Fourth, the NGEs, this includes the private sector, are allowed to undertake end-to-end activities in the space sector through establishment and operation of space objectives, ground-based assets, related services such as communication, remote sensing, navigation, etc. So now the NGAs are allowed to undertake end-to-end operations in space sector. Okay, so from building the company to building the satellites to launching the satellites, ground services to using whatever communication you want, everything you can do with full autonomy. Satellites could be safe old, procured or leased, so you can procure satellites or you can lease satellites. Communication services could be over India or outside, and remote sensing data could be disseminated in India or abroad too. So now India is completely giving autonomy to non-governmental entities. Do whatever you want, but just use the space sector properly. Just use the space sector in a peaceful manner and tap on its full potential. So this is a very, very important key area of the space policy now that the NGEs will be allowed to undertake end-to-end operations in the space sector. I'm again reiterating, satellites could be self-owned, procured or leased, communication services could be over India or outside, remote sensing data could be disseminated in India or abroad. And the fifth key point of space policy, finally, in space, India's space promotion is expected to create a stable and predictable regulatory framework that will ensure the level playing field for NGEs. So, who has the responsibility for creating a regulatory framework, enabling environment in space? Especially for whom? For the NGEs. It will act as a promoter by setting up industry clusters as the regulator, issue guidelines on liability issues. So, InSpace will act as a what? Promoter. Please remember this. InSpace will act as a promoter to regulate. Okay. So, it is not like that InSpace will apply brakes. No, InSpace will always keep a pedal on the InSpace will always keep a foot on the accelerator. It will not keep a foot on the brakes. Why? Because it needs to act as a promoter. Promoter in what sense? By setting up industry clusters and as the regulator issue guidelines on liability issues too. Issue guidelines on the regulatory liability issues too. Okay, so these are the 5 key points of the space policy wherein ISRO is now moving ahead from its manufacturing responsibility to its only research based dimensions. InSpace will regulate, NGs will have end-to-end operational autonomy, and now ISRO will primarily focus, the space sector of India will primarily be focusing on civilian and peaceful applications. Anything related to the security of India, to the defense of India will be borne separately by the Space Defense Research Organization of India. Now, here comes the main part, critical analysis, because you can also have critical analysis, your main simple question. Okay, critically analyze the new India space policy. Okay, the gaps. The policy sets out ambitious role for InSpace but provides no time frame for necessary steps ahead. So there needs to be a protected time frame where whatever has been documented, whatever has been put forward is actually coming into play. Neither is there an indicative timeline for ISRO's transition out of its current practices, nor there is a schedule for InSpace to create the regulatory framework. So it is not yet clear that when the ISRO will primarily transition out from its manufacturing responsibility to focus merely on advancements in space and technology, and there is not even a timeline wherein InSpace will establish this as a regulatory framework. A regulatory body needs legislative authority too. So if you are saying that InSpace will have a regulatory kind of mechanism, it will be having regulatory power, so it will also require legislative authority, means there needs to be an act passed by the Parliament of India. InSpace is expected to authorize space activities for all, both government and NGOs entity. Currently, its position is ambiguous as it functions under the purview of Department of Space. It needs to have its separate act, like see the Security Exchange Board by 1992 SEBI Act. So you have certain acts which give legislative authority to the representative entity. So similarly, for InSpace to function properly, you need to have a legislative act. InSpace is expected to authorize space activities for all, both government entities and NGOs. Currently, its position is ambiguous. Why? It does not have a separate legislative authority. It is presently functioning under the purview of Department of Science. The Secretary of Space is also the chairman of ISRO, the government entity to be regulated by InSpace. So this is not yet done. So what needs to be done? You need to have legislative authority for InSpace. And lastly, what is urgently needed is the time frame to provide the necessary legal framework to translate this vision into reality. So everything needs to be done in a protected time frame. So you require a time frame, provide the necessary legal framework to transition this vision into reality to successfully launch India into the second space age. So the need of the hour is a protected time frame. So guys, this was the very important article with regards to the space sector, the issues pegging the space sector and what needs to be done. So if you are asking me, sir, give one line comment or one word comment as to what is needed of today, the only thing you are will needing today is a protected time frame where whatever is being documented, that is actually materializing on the ground. Okay, so this was a very important article today written by one of the most eminent persons. Now the second article is again bringing, just wait a bit. Okay. We are having some technical delays, just give me a moment. Okay, let it install. So the second article which I will be discussing today is primarily with regards to the India space sector. We did discuss that why did the Go airlines go defunct. We did discuss as to why the Go airlines suffered such heavy losses, what was lacking on the government side, what was lacking from the authoritarian side of the government. There was crony capitalism, you had heavy leasing fees. So now finally this issue has come as a explainer in the text and context page. So here I am saying again that the theory of evolution of Pritesh Mathurkar is coming true. My hypothesis is coming true, that if any news is important, first it will come in the headlines page, then it will find a way into the editorial page, then it will come into the op-ed page, and if the issue is so damn important, guys, it will finally come into the text and context page. So please now trust me. I hope that now I have got your trust, okay, that you are now trusting me as a very able faculty, as a good friend, philosopher and guide for analysis of current affairs. Okay, jokes aside, see, trust, you have to have some trust, but ultimately the ultimate trust which you all should put in is you yourself. Even if I am teaching you all this, it's your responsibility that you analyze whatever I am teaching and you are working on your content, because in the end you yourself are going to help yourself. No one is coming to help you. Please get this straight. No God, no human being, no animal, no non-living entity is going to help you. Only you are the sole warrior, you are the sole kind of soldier in your life's battlefield. Keep this straight. So whatever is being done on the board, this is just done to support yourself. You have to have your own war, you have to win your own battles. Okay. Okay, so let's move ahead. So let's start with the discussion of this article, the troubles of India's aviation industry. Okay, so just one stop destination for everything. If you have any other article, or if you are reading any other thing outside this article for aviation industry, please don't do this, because anything outside this will be of no utilitarian value for you all. So the problems faced by aviation industry, just this one article for the entire year, that's it. Forget about any other material. Okay, so what does the go first distress call mean for the aviation sector? Why a major section of go first aircraft grounded since last year? Why do airlines struggle to survive? What are the contributions to high operating cost, and what are the policy and regulatory factors affecting the industry? So a one-stop destination, a one-stop analysis of the shortcomings of the aviation industry in India. So let's begin. You all know, we discussed in the previous lectures that yes, Indian aviation industry does lag a complete umbrella industry. Why? Because every department in the aviation industry is handled by some other ministries. So like if you are flying, if you are going from country A to country B, so immigration, the customs, the your security is handled by three different ministries. How? Immigration is primarily handled by Ministry of Home Affairs, customs is formally handled by Ministry of Finance, your security in the aircraft is handled by DGCA under this Ministry of Civil Aviation. So three different ministries are basically operating your air travel. They are ensuring your air travel. So this becomes a very difficult exercise. Why? Because once a issue comes which engulfs two or three different ministries, then you lack oversight. Okay, so we did discuss this in the previous class, so now we are continuing ahead of that. Okay, So let's begin. The country's domestic air traffic has been recovering in the past few months after being severely hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. As of today, as per the Civil Aviation Ministry, India will have more than 140 million passengers in FY 2024 alone. The Center for Civil Aviation projects India to handle more than 1.3 billion passengers annually in the next 20 years. So in the next 20 years, India can handle 1.3 billion passengers annually. There are currently how many airports? 148 airports in the country, and it is already the third biggest domestic market in the world in terms of seat capacity. So it is not like this, guys, that the India's aviation industry or the India's aviation market is not that big. It's very big. Okay. The only thing that is lacking over here is tapping its full potential. You need to have some regulatory framework. You need to have proper maintenance of the operations. And most importantly, everything runs on money. So whatever is draining out the money from the governmental side, from the operations side, from the airline side, you need to curtail your expenses. That is the crux of this article. Okay, so you need to curtail wherever money is flowing like water. Okay, you shouldn't let money flow like water. Okay, so let's move ahead. Is the sector financially viable? Okay, you need to understand this, guys, that India's aviation sector is not at all financially viable, and the sole reason behind this is competition. Okay, before the advent of private airlines, you had only one major airline, Air India. Air India owned majority of the routes. Air India owned majority of the parking slots in the airports. So when new airlines came, they faced steep competition from Air India. Okay, so after Air India became defunct, private player like Indigo accounted for more than 50% share of India's airspace. So 50% one particular player is dominating. So what is left to other players? Okay, so all the other players are not even getting more than 50%, they are getting less than 40% of airspace. So steep competition is very potent issue in India's aviation sector. So if we want to achieve something good in aviation sector, competition mustn't be very steep. You need to have healthy competition, not a crushing competition. Okay. So airlines cumulatively suffered huge losses, approximately 15,000 crore in the financial year 2020-2021 owing to the pandemic. Losses are not a post-COVID phenomenon. Okay, in 2019-20, Indigo was the only airline to make a profit while all other players posted losses, led by state-run Air India, which registered whooping 4,600 crore loss. The trouble has led to the folding of major airlines in the past few decades. 17 airlines, domestic and regional, have exited the market. So the operational losses, because of steep competition, the operational losses are so damn high that how many airlines? 17 airlines up till now have exited the market, both domestic as well as regional. While Air India was bad for competition in its earlier state-owned version, with the current consolidation, 75 to 80% of the market will be captured by Air Indigo and Air India combined, leaving just about 20% for players like SpiceJet, Go First, and the new entrant Akasa. So just imagine this, 80% of market will be just dominated by two airlines, Indigo and Air India. So where the other airlines will go? Okay, you don't have space. So if you are having a room of, let's say, 100 square feet and only two persons are occupying 80 square feet, and you are trying to cringe roughly 10 people in 20 square feet, how will they function properly? Okay, so this is not, guys, this is not done. Competition is highly uneven in India, and hence, because of this, operation or the operative losses increase. Why? Because for you to earn profits, your business must be a viable business. You need to make good profits. So if you want to make good profits, you need to have a certain share of the market. Then only you will sell your product. Then only people will buy airline tickets and will travel. If two players are dominating, everyone will flock to the major players only. This is not done. Okay. Now here comes the most important question. What cost do airlines bear? Okay, where the money of airline actually goes? Okay, so let's understand this. So the first point where money of the airline goes is on the fuel, and the fuel of the airliners, it is called as aviation turbine fuel. It is called as ATF. While no frills band faced intense competition to keep prices low, government levied high taxes on the aviation turbine fuel. According to estimates, while India's airfare are 15% below the break-even point, heavily taxed ATF contributes to the single biggest expenses of the carriers, amounting to anywhere between 40 to 50% of operational expenses. See guys, this is again a very grave area from the regulation perspective. Why? Because already you have 80% of the market dominated by two airlines. The remaining 20% is open to all the other airlines, and in that 50 to 40% of your operational cost is going where? Is going on the taxation of ATF. So very disenabling environment. Okay, the environment is not at all conducive for operating in a free and fair manner. Okay, some Indian states also impose provisional taxes as much as 30% on jet fuel. So central government was there only imposing around roughly 40 to 50% of the operational expenses on ATF. Now, the state governments also impose taxes of as much as 30% on jet fuel. This also makes shorter flight routes unsustainable for smaller airlines, while big carriers like Indigo offer ultra cheap fares on routes flown by rivals, using their reach to recoup cost on less competitive legs and tapping economies of scale to overheads, notes Bloomberg analysis. What do you mean by this? Okay, so now if you are a small airline, but naturally you are not going to get the desired routes. So let's say you are a very small airline, let's say like Air Akasa, and you want to have a slot, you want to book a slot between Mumbai and Delhi. So Mumbai and Delhi, one of the most busy air routes of India. So you think that a small airline like me, Air Akasa, will actually get a desired slot over there? No, it's very difficult. So now where a small airline me will have to tap into, we have to tap into smaller routes. Let's say between Mumbai and Indore, let's say between Mumbai and let's say any small town like Belgaum, Mumbai and Shirdi. So now if I'm starting to operate on the smaller routes, what is coming under my path? What is coming as an obstacle? The high taxes on the ATF as well as the state's levying taxes on the jet fuel. So my 50% to 60% of operational costs are going in just taxes. How am I going to pay to the crew? How am I going to pay to the ground services? How am I going to pay the airport parking fees? So it's all a very disenabling environment. Okay, so I'm again reiterating, some Indian states impose provisional taxes of as much as 30% on jet fuel. This also makes shorter routes unsustainable for smaller airlines, while the biggies like Indigo. Now, Indigo will do what? They will use their economies of scale. Why? Because they have good fleet, they have good slots, so they will lower the cheap. They will cheap in the prices of the airline tickets so that maximum number of customers flock into their airlines, and using economies of scale, they try to maximize their profits. So offer ultra cheap fares on routes flown by rivals, using their reach to recoup cost on less competitive legs. So if Air Akasa is running between Mumbai and Indore, so Indigo will do what? Indigo will now also start its journey between Mumbai and Indore. And as Indigo is running on Mumbai and Indore, it will lower the prices than the Air Akasa. So basically Indigo is doing what? It is crushing the competition. So this is not at all done. Okay, and tapping economies of scale to lower overheads, this is very daunting. India's aviation policy also posed barriers to entry and growth, also not affecting players uniformly. So there was a rule prior to 2016 that if you want to open a new airline or you want to tap into the international routes, so you need to have at least 5 years of domestic experience and you need to have a aircraft fleet of at least 20 aircrafts. In 2016 it was overhauled that okay, we are done with the experience, now you should at least have 20 fit aircraft. So from 2004 to 16, new airlines in the country to be operational for at least 5 years and have a fleet of at least 20 carriers to be able to fly internationally, which stabilizes the operation and viability of the aircrafts. This changed with the National Civil Aviation Policy in 2016, which removed the 5-year domestic experience rule. So this 5-year domestic experience rule was removed in the year 2016 but kept the place for 20 aircraft fleet requirement, mandating domestic airlines to have at least 20 aircrafts for domestic operations. So you should at least have 20 aircrafts in your domestic space if you want to fly internationally. Before 2016, you also need to have 5 years of domestic experience, but after 2016, it was done with. So now if you want to operate internationally, you need to have at least 20 aircrafts in your fleet, and then the 21st aircraft can be used to fly internationally. Okay, while a newer entrants to this entity like Vistara and AirAsia lobbied the government to remove the 520 rule, legacy carriers who had to meet the earlier requirements to go international space opposed the change as being bad for competition. So you have new airlines like Air Vistara, like AirAsia. Okay, they said that we want to go into the international markets. Please remove this 520 rule. Why? Because we can have 10 aircrafts for India and we can lease 10 aircrafts to the foreign routes. But here now comes the catch. If government is doing so for the new airlines, what about the legacy airlines? So again, clash of the titans. Again, clash of the regulations. Okay. Next most important thing, leasing fees. Okay, so the first thing that we discussed was on the levy of taxes on the ATF, on the state taxes on the jet fuel. Because of this, the small aircraft carriers or the small airlines, they find it very difficult to manage their expenses. Second, we also discussed the 520 rule, that because of the 520 rule, there is a tussle between the biggies and the new entrants. And the third and the most important thing, leasing fees. About 80% of India's total commercial fleet is leased. Okay, 80% of India's aircraft today across airlines, they are leased. They are not owned by the aircrafts according to PwC. However, leasing ends up adding high cost to the operations, as these leases of about 6 months each are dominated in US dollars. So if you are leasing aircrafts from the foreign entities, this is borne by whom? This is borne in the US dollars. So as this is borne in US dollars, if the rupee appreciates or depreciates, what will happen? You will have to shell out even more money. If rupee depreciates, then the lease price also increases. Airlines have to pay annual lease rents of about 10,000 crores to the lessors, making up nearly 50% of the revenues of the Indian airlines, except Air India, which owns a large part of its fleet. So they have to shell out how much amount of money? Roughly 10,000 crores, nearly 15% of the revenue. So 15% of your revenue is going into leasing. How are you going to operate the airline? Okay, the cost of leasing also goes up further when the Indian rupee depreciates during short and long-term global financial developments. For instance, oil price shock, which simultaneously increases the cost of ATF, compounding the carrier's expenses. So those of you who are watching me now properly, Jasmita, Stuti, Anup, Aditi, Niranjan, Anup, I have Jagriti, please listen to this very, very properly. I know that this article, today's articles are a little bit more daunting, but just bear with me. I hope that you will all get this. So if rupee depreciates, if Indian rupee depreciates as compared to dollars, so your leasing fees increases. You will have to shell out more money to lease the aircrafts. Why? Because your currency has depreciated, and as the currency is depreciating, the prices of ATF will also go high because it is also dominated internationally by dollars. So if ATF prices are going high, and add to it, you have to pay even more taxes. So your operational cost gets compounded. Already you have to pay more in leasing, already you have to pay more for securing ATF, and add to it you have to pay taxes too. So everything gets compounded in the aviation industry. So this is the major lacuna in the Indian aviation sector. Okay. Till the government plan to get leasing companies to set up shops in India and make it a leasing hub takes off fully, the expensive lease rents for airlines and repayment of fuels with lessors are here to stay. So unless and until government does something with regards to the leasing of companies, it set up shops in India, the feud with the lasers are bound to stay. So right now what Indigo is arguing, Indo is arguing that we are leased the aircraft from the lessors. So the lessors will now come to India, will now come to the Go First airline to grab their assets. Because if the airline is going defunct, the lessors will fear what? That the aircraft industry will not, or the airliner will not return back their planes. So this is a major feud between the lessor and leasing, that they fear, both of them fear that if the rupee depreciates, leasing fees will grow high, and the lessor will fear that if the airline goes defunct, it will not return back their aircraft carriers. Airlines also have to bear the cost in terms of airport fees for use of airport facilities, including aircraft landing, freight, and other charges related to the use of airport infrastructure such as runways and passenger terminals. So this was not enough. So airlines now have to bear additional costs too. Additional cost in terms of what? Airport fees for use of airport facilities, including aircraft landing, freight, and other charges related to the use of airport infrastructure such as runways and passenger terminals. So if you are a big airline, but naturally you want to have the most preferred parking slot, the most preferred passenger terminal. Why? Because you will feel that if we want to give 5-star experience to the passengers, so the passengers should not travel more. So if you are a big airline and if you are getting the last point of gate, you are getting the last gate in the airport terminal, passenger will have to cross the entire airport to get into an aircraft. No, this is not done. So aircraft liners or the airline industry have to shell out even more to get their preferred gate numbers. So this is not at all done, guys. Okay. Internationally, airlines pass on the bulk of these charges to the passengers. However, carriers in India, to remain competitive, have to offer lower ticket fares to increase the reach. So this is all with regards to the cost which aircraft industries have to pay. Now what is needed? Okay, you also need to have privatization of airports, and which can again increase the future fee hikes. So now the government is doing privatization of the airports. So if you are privatizing airports, it will again entitle into higher fees. Why? Because the private entities will charge you even more. Okay, so guys, these are the very much lacunas of India's aviation sector, wherein you have to shell additional cost on fuel, you have to shell up additional cost on the leasing, you have to shell up additional cost on maintenance operation. There is a term called as MRO. Okay, I'm writing the term for you all. MRO. MRO stands for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. So you have to maintain the aircraft, you have to repair the aircraft, and you have to overhaul the aircraft. Overhaul means when the aircraft goes in for maintenance and aircraft comes out. So overall. So if the airport fees keep on increasing, MRO becomes very, very difficult. Maintenance, repair, and overhaul. And mind you, this is entirely borne by airline. This is not borne anything by the government. So already the airline has to invest its maximum amount in MRO, because it has to maintain the aircraft, it has to repair the aircraft, it has to overhaul the aircraft, and additional to this you are taxing the ATF. Additional to this you are getting airport fees from the airlines. So all of this paints a very grey picture for the India's aviation industry. So guys, this was one of the most eye-opening article on India's aviation sector. I hope that this article and the op-ed which we discussed, that what is lacking on the government side, and this is the losses borne by the aircraft carriers. So that article and this article is your one-stop destination for the challenges in India's aviation sector. You don't need to refer to any other material for this. Okay, so let's now move ahead to the discussion of other two articles. Other two articles, guys, are headline articles. You don't need to invest more in that. So the first headline article of today, that railway to proceed with the closure of printing presses despite opposition. So now we are moving towards digital India. So most of you are now getting digital tickets. So the railway department has said that now we are closing the printing presses which print the tickets. So, but naturally when you will close something which is a public entity, you are bound to get protests. So in this article, just remember where are the printing presses located. Despite stiff resistance from the trade unions, the Ministry of Railways has decided to go ahead with its decision to close down 5 printing presses across the network and outsource the printing of tickets until complete digitalization of the ticketing system is achieved. Digital India. Okay, and where are the presses located? Okay, the printing places are located at Royapuram and Chennai Southern Railway, Sikandarabad South Central Railway, Baikula and Mumbai Central Railway, Howrah East Railway, and Sakurbasti, Delhi Northern Railway, and was deferred until All India Railway Federation, South Indian Railway Mazdoor Union, and other trade unions opposed the move. So these are the 5 locations where the Indian railways printing presses are located. You just need to remember this, where the locations are. So number first, it is at Rampuram and Chennai for South Railway, Sikandarabad South Central Railway. Sikandarabad is basically Hyderabad, Baikul and Mumbai for Central Railway, Howrah Eastern Railway, and Sakurbasti and Delhi the Northern Railway. So these 5 printing presses have now been closed. Why? Because we are transitioning towards digital India. So you can use this as an example, as a case study too, for moving towards digital India. But naturally, the trade unions will oppose this. So again, a headline article, not that of significance. So severity level less than 2. Okay. Now, this is again a very important article, which is very important from prelims perspective. Okay. So there is a new study on the sludge which finds high potential for use as a fertilizer. So this is with regards to the waste management. This is with regards to the Earth Ganga program under the National Mission for Clean Ganga. Okay, so it has been found that if you treat the sludge properly from the sewage treatment plants, the sludge has a high potential to be used as a fertilizer in the fields, has a rich potential to be used as a manure in the field. So let's begin. In first of the kind analysis of the sludge found in India sewage treatment plants set up to treat polluted water from Ganga, found that most of it had high potential for use as a fertilizer. So you can use the sludge of the sewage treatment plant as a fertilizer, but required treatment before it could be used unrestricted on farms on a potential biofuel basis. But it will require certain treatment. Okay. An emerging initiative of the National Mission for Clean Ganga, a flagship program of the government to establish treatment facilities and prevent the pollution of the river, is to derive livelihood opportunities from the river rejuvenation program. So it is an initiative under the National Mission for Clean Ganga that you need to have something which can act as a point source for livelihood of the local people. So you need to derive certain rejuvenation mechanisms from the National Mission for Clean Ganga, wherein people can earn as a livelihood source. And this is where Earth Ganga will come into play. So you need to remember Earth Ganga from prelims perspective. One of the measures under this Earth Ganga, economic value from Ganga, is to monetize and reuse the treated wastewater and sludge. So if I am asking you in prelims, Earth Ganga falls under what? Earth Ganga will fall under National Mission for Clean Ganga. And why we are pursuing Earth Ganga? Because it is the endeavor of the National Mission of Clean Ganga to derive livelihood opportunities from river rejuvenation program. So you need to derive livelihood. Basically, you need to ensure the economic viability of the program, wherein people benefit economically. Hence, the initiative called as Earth Ganga. One of the measures under this Earth Ganga, economic value from Ganga, is to monetize, reuse treated wastewater and sludge. This means converting sludge, a thick residue, while rich in organic chemicals, is also a repository of heavy metals, industrial effluents, and bacterial contaminants into usable products such as manure and bricks. So you need to use the sludge as manure and as bricks, but will it include only the positive components? No, it will also include heavy metals, it will also include industrial effluents, and it will also include bacterial contaminants. Hence, it needs to be treated. Okay. So the treated sludge can be classified as class A or class B as per the standards of United Nations Environmental Protection Agency, with class A being safe to be disposed of in the open, whereas class B means that the sludge can be used in restricted agriculture applications, the edible parts of the crops not to be exposed to the sludge mixed soil and animals. So according to USA's Environmental Protection Agency, the sludge is classified into two. You have class A sludge and you have class B sludge. Okay, the class A sludge is free to be used anywhere in the open, whereas class B sludge shouldn't be exposed directly to the plants. So let's say if you are having a cauliflower plant, so class B sludge should be used in the soil itself. It should not be exposed to the crop part which is exposed directly to us or which we will be consuming directly. At present, India does not have any standard of classifying sludge as class A or class B. So India is lacking this. India does not have any standard. So if you want to use sludge under the Earth Ganga program to be classified as a manure or in the brick use, so you need to first have classification of sludge as class A and class B. A study by Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, found that most of the sludge analyzed after drying fell into class B category. So IIT Roorkee conducted the study and they found that majority of the sludge fell into class B. Nitrogen and phosphorus levels, the basic soil nutrients, were higher than those recommended by India's fertilizer standards. So both nitrogen and phosphorus were on a higher level scale. And next, the total organic carbon was more than 16%, again higher than the FCO recommendations, but the degree of pathogens as well as heavy metal contamination was above the recommended standard. So IIT Roorkee basically conducted a study and they found that nitrogen and phosphorus were way higher than the recommendations set by the Indian Fertilizer Standard FCO 2019, and even the total organic content was more than 16%, again higher than FCO recommendations, but the degree of pathogens, you will have bacteria, you will have viruses, you will have fungus, as well as heavy metal contamination like arsenic, lead, mercury was above the recommended standard. So the thing with regards to this is that the sewage must be treated. When the sewage is treated, it is getting converted into sludge, but even the sludge has to be treated before it can be used as a manure or a brick material. Why? Because it will have the soil nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, it will have volatile organic compounds, it will also have heavy metals like lead, arsenic, mercury, selenium, cobalt. It can also have pathogens like viruses, bacteria, fungus. So everything needs to be treated first before it is being used in actuality. So you need to remember this from prelims perspective, guys. And at present, India does not have any standard for grouping the sludge into class A or class B. Okay, Anup, we don't need to discuss the chart of the airlines. That is not important. Okay, mind you, I'm only giving you that information which is vital from your utilitarian perspective, not from only the graphical perspective. So don't need to worry with regards to that. Okay, so again, this article becomes very important with regards to the treatment of sewage. Okay, the study on sludge finding high potential for use as a fertilizer, but again you need to make sure that you are treating the sludge. Okay, you have to remember three things from this article. Number first, the National Mission for Clean Ganga, one of the components of it is that you need to utilize this mission to use something with regards to the livelihood source of the people. Here comes Earth Ganga. Earth Ganga means economic value of Ganga, wherein the sludge which is coming out from the sewage treated from the waters is being used as manure or as brick material. But for using this, you need to classify the sludge as class A and class B. Sludge will have what? Sludge will have the basic soil nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus. It will have volatile organic compounds. It will have heavy metals like arsenic, lead, selenium. You will also have mercury. And lastly, it will also have pathogens. It will have viruses, it will have bacteria, and it will also have fungus. So all of this needs to be treated first. Okay. So let's move towards the discussion of last article today. Again, a headline article. So there is a drone called as iDrone, which was used for transporting vaccines during COVID-19, but now it has been used for delivering blood back. Okay, so this article becomes important from telemedicine perspective. The Indian Council of Medical Research ISMR on Wednesday successfully conducted the trial run of delivery of blood bags under its iDrone initiative. So please remember the name of the drone. It is iDrone. Okay. The iDrone was first used during the COVID-19 pandemic by ICMR for distributing vaccines to remote areas. Today, we are transporting blood and blood related products which are supposed to kept at low temperatures. So using iDrone, you can now transport blood and blood products too. So please use this example in the field of telemedicine, because you can have the recent applications of technology in the field of telemedicine as your direct question in prelims and in mains too. Okay. So guys, this summarizes the articles for today. I know that the first two articles were very daunting for each and every one of you, but I hope that I have made justice to those two articles and that you have got the issue from the brink to the top. Okay. I'm again reiterating, guys, nothing is worth if you are not revising. You have to contemplate in your brain. So after this session, sit for 15 to 20 minutes, contemplate everything in your brain. You will be done and dusted. Again, I'm reiterating, you can reach out to me on Telegram by joining this channel. And for joining this channel, you can just do a global Telegram search at the Hindu Analysis Zone, wherein I post the PDFs directly. So guys, on the behalf of StudyIQ IAS English, I call this session off. Tomorrow we'll again meet at the same time, at the same place, sharp at 9 a.m. for discussing the current affairs of 12th of May. All the best everyone, and please keep on working hard and smart, because that is needed in the civil services examination. Okay, so see you all tomorrow. Take care everyone. Bye-bye.